How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about a Halloween movie. I'm going to be trying to cover as many Halloween movies as I can while it's October, and today we're going to be talking about Uncanny Annie. This is from the Into the Dark line. The Into the Dark line was basically Blumhouse Television and Hulu teaming up to release a new horror movie every month, and they wound up doing that for about 2 years, I believe. So tons of original Hulu movies. This was from October 2019. They would usually try to theme the movies with the months they came out in, so we would get 2 Halloween movies in this line. This was directed by Paul Davies and stars Georgie Flores, Adelaide Kane, Jacques, Colimon, and Dylan Arnold. A brief, non-spoilery summary of this plot. We open up with Uncanny Annie chasing this kid through a black void. She says, "You cheated," and then attacks him, and that's the prologue. You always gotta open up with killing a prologue guy, right? Anyway, after that, we jump to Halloween night, and a group of friends are getting together, 3 guys, 3 girls, in a house to sort of, celebrate the life of one of their friends who passed away. Now, I know what you're thinking. We just saw a kid die in the intro, and now they're talking about one of their friends who passed away. No, they're not mourning the death of Prologue Kid. It's a weird way they introduced it. You would think they're talking about Prologue Kid, but Prologue Kid is unrelated to anything that happens in the movie other than being another victim of Annie. So it's not Prologue Kid, okay? Anyway, they're in their house. They decided, don't engage with Halloween culture. We're not going to party. We're not going to, give candy to trick-or-treaters. We're going to hole up in this house. We're going to drink beer and play board games, because our friend who died a year ago on Halloween loved board games, and we're going to play some in his honor. One of the girls goes to the basement, grabs a handful of games, and one of them is a board game that none of them recognize, and they just assume was something owned by the last members of the house. And this is the Uncanny Annie board game, with a drawing of Annie on the front and a bunch of her victims. They open it up, and the rules are pretty simple. There is a deck of challenge cards. You flip them over, you do the challenge. If you do the challenge, you get a tile, and the tiles will spell out Annie's name. So the group only needs 5 tiles. If they fail, they have to draw from a second, harder challenge deck that they can use to hopefully stay alive, So you don't do the challenge, you don't get the tile, but you have to do a harder challenge. That's sort of the rules. You also get a card with a picture of Annie looking away from you that they'll find will turn around as the day goes on. You get a dice that they don't know what the meaning of it is. That's for the end of the game. And you also get a box. A box that they're trapped in, or is Annie herself, or it moves. I don't know what the box is. It's a box, it's creepy, and it makes the game have a better sense of visual balance. Anyway, they start to play, and of course the challenges are going to start off easy and get harder and creepier. So the first challenge is something like, okay, everybody say what your secret fear is. Not that hard, you can say it and move on. But then you eventually get something like, okay, for your next challenge, be a vampire, bite your friend's neck until it bleeds. I'm not going to do that. Move on to the second challenge card. But of course, these things will get bigger and creepier, and spooky things will start to happen, and they'll eventually discover that their phones, they can't make calls on them, they can't reach the outside world. They'll open up the door, and find that their whole house has been sucked into the black void and there's no way out, except for, of course, finishing Annie's game. Now, overall, I have to say with this movie, it's not terrible, but it doesn't really have anything going for it. Like, for example, as far as style, really with this one, all you have is just generic Blumhouse for your style. And I don't know, if you have friends over that want to watch a scary movie for Halloween, but they're kind of horror movie newbies and they can't take anything too dark, and you know they're probably just going to be on their phone the whole time anyway, you can just turn this on as essentially background noise and then they won't really miss anything. It's very casual viewing, not super scary, and definitely not memorable. Like, for real, this was one of those movies, and it's a sign of a bad movie, that I feel like I'm forgetting it as I'm watching it. And, like, okay, I watched this last night, and I always write my notes right after I watch the movie so that they're still fresh. And boy, am I glad I have my notes to remind me. I'm recording this a little bit early, and I really do feel like by the time this review actually goes up, I'll have forgotten most of this movie. It's not bad, but doesn't really have anything going for it. It's really not memorable. And I'm not gonna gripe too hard, or at least I try not to, but let's talk about where this movie is lacking. First of all, I guess because it is the season, I should mention Halloween is very underutilized in this movie. You see Halloween decorations around the house, and also the kids are in costume, but it's not big crazy costumes. It's nothing too super memorable. One of the girls is a cheerleader. One guy is dressed up as Santa Claus, but he just has the Santa hat and a shirt that says Santa Claus on it. And he even dumps the hat pretty early in the movie, so his whole costume is just a white shirt that says Santa Claus. None of the costumes are too great, and plus, when your house gets sucked into the void, you don't really have trick-or-treaters showing up. So overall, it's set on Halloween, but it really didn't have to be because Halloween plays so little of a role in this movie, and I wish it was more Halloween-y. I wish we got more extreme costumes, more references to the holiday. I wish maybe Uncanny Annie herself maybe had some connection to Halloween, which I guess leads me into the next point. Uncanny Annie herself, she's okay. She's a younger woman, and she'll do that kind of baby talk, kind of creepy, you disobeyed my rules type of thing. It's alright. The bigger deal, though, is we hardly see Annie, and we don't really get to know her. We don't know why she's haunting a board game. We don't know where she came from. I don't think there's any origin story for this ghost, but when we see her, it's primarily just her drawing on the box, and there's no sense of ominous buildup. There's no, oh my gosh, Annie's coming. And really, it doesn't, like, I get keeping a character off screen to build a sense of dread and importance for when they do show up, but you don't ever really feel that, and instead it just feels like Annie didn't bother showing up to her own movie except for the bare minimum prologue and final couple scenes there. For a movie called Uncanny Annie, barely any Annie, and I wish she was creepier, more developed, a backstory, tied to Halloween or something. After that, The Fantastic. This is a movie, a board game horror movie, and think like Jumanji, which they do reference in this movie. They reference Jumanji. And Jumanji was big, wild, and crazy. And I know we don't have the budget for this. This is Blumhouse TV. But I wish we were more imaginative. We do get a few cool elements. For example, there are other characters than Annie. We get a trickster prankster character, and we also get the Grim Reaper himself, which kind of weird that he showed up, but okay, whatever. Grim Reaper's here, that's cool. And actually, they both show up twice because the production department couldn't afford 4 different monsters, so the 2 monsters we have to pull double duty. But, they're cool. But I wish we got more. The Void is cool, but they don't really spend too much time exploring the Void or its implications, and it's just kind of houses in the Void, you get 2 monsters, they're alright, and that's it. And I wish we got more insane, trippy elements. Jumanji was so much better, and I wish there was more in that regard. Also, the games. Again, like the fantastical elements, some of these are okay. None are great. Like, one of the games was protect a card from the trickster character. Don't let him get it. Another game was the quiet game. Trickster's gonna come in, do some creepy stuff, don't scream. Okay, those are good games. Actually, both of those are the Trickster's games. I guess the Trickster has the best games. Both of them are okay. They're not super great. And I wish we had some more clever games. When you're doing game-based horror, it's kind of like watching sports. You want the audience to engage and say, do this, don't do that. Oh, I think if you did this, you'd be safe. You want them yelling at the TV. And the games here are just okay, not super memorable. One of them is literally stab the Grim Reaper before he stabs you, and he kind of just, boop, and he's gone. Great. And the thing is, the hardest part of the games is trying to figure out Annie's vague rules, and that's just kind of frustrating. This should be more engaging to the audience. Just take the time, come up with some clever, fun games that we could, be thinking about the next day. Anyway, after that, I gotta complain about the characters. The characters kind of all blend into one amorphous goop of characters. Like, one of them's a little funnier, one of them's a little sassier, but other than that, none of the characters really stand out from the group. They all kind of feel like the same, young college student, teenagers who want to joke and party, and when something's going on, surely the monsters aren't real, and just deny that. They're the same teens we've seen in a million other movies, which overall isn't terrible when those are the filler characters, but we still have some mains. But none of the characters really stand out from the group in any way other than a few vague personality traits. You want to know a good example of this? Is 2 of the people in this group, one of the guys and one of the girls, used to date. And they broke things off, and if they hadn't told us in the beginning, you wouldn't really notice, because even though this is a big, or at least relatively big plot point, it gets forgotten about for most of the movie. It just doesn't come up terribly often, except for the 3 or so scenes where all of a sudden it's important again, and we're talking about it again. It's a big plot point that gets forgotten about until they need it. And that's sort of the thing with the characters here. Although, the actors aren't bad, it's just what they have to work with. And I really have to give the actors props, because there's some really bad Blumhouse lines in here, and they just take them like champs. For example, there's this one line, and it's serious, it's not a joke, where one of the kids, they go into the void, they're like, wow, our house is in a void, and one of the kids goes, I bet the Large Hadron Collider exploded and we're trapped in the quantum realm. And that's not a joke, he literally thinks that. And the poor actor delivers this with a straight face. So yeah, the characters are bad, it's not the actors' faults, though. Don't get me wrong on that. But overall, this is a Blumhouse game-based horror movie. And like, they did their Truth or Dare movie and everybody complained about that smile. At least I remember that, I wish this had something that stuck out, something that was more memorable, even if it was a goofier moment. But, the Void's kind of memorable, some of the characters are kind of memorable, some of the games are kind of memorable. You might eventually remember this movie and we're like, oh yeah, the Protect the Card game, or oh yeah, the Grim Reaper showed up, you know? It's not gonna stick in your head super well. I wish Halloween was a bigger part of this movie. I wish it was a good Halloween-y Halloween movie. I wish the games were more engaging. I wish the characters were better. I wish this was scarier. It's not very scary. I wish it was gorier, maybe. I don't know, but as it stands, you know, that lazy Saturday afternoon trope, put on a movie I don't want to think too much about. It's not offensively bad, it's just the epitome of forgettable. So if you want to put it on and just chill watching a scary movie that you don't have to think too much or care too much about, this fills that gap, but it's really not a great movie. And yeah, more Annie, more Halloween. I don't know. It's okay for what it is. Can't really give it a strong recommendation outside of let's just throw something on. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Halloween playlist. If you guys want to see me talk about other Halloween movies, I've talked about a lot of the John Carpenter Halloween series. I talked about things like Terrifier and Trick or Treat. House's October Built. That one was pretty fun. So I've talked about a bunch of Halloween movies here. If you want to see more, you can click a playlist that should be popping up right here. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Halloween playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.